It's 7:30 and what a fun day. Made it kind of easy getting out of bed. People say, oh, it's Monday. But hey, at least you didn't wake up dead.
I wonder if you offend people who actually do wake up dead. Like, are they going to feel like,
Like we're making fun of them?
Yeah. Anyway.
I would hope not. Yeah, I certainly don't want to offend any dead people. That would give me guilt. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. Rough start today, very rough start, but we have a good week planned. We have a very good week planned.
In our opinion.
We'll
see how it actually.
Our unbiased opinion. You are watching Posturing for Your Day with Bill
and Gina.
And so far, you have shared with us things about stretching the calves. No, things about stretching the calves, hinging at the hip instead of rolling at the back, and also when we stand, that our weight should be back, not completely over the heels, but back more towards our heels instead of leaning forward. And each one of those is involved in this thing called squatting. And we want to teach you how to squat right so you can have squatter's rights. People go to the gym maybe once or twice a week, and they say, "Oh, I do squats," and I know they come into the office and they are complaining.
I hurt myself doing squats.
Yeah, I hurt myself doing squats. And so our question is that a real squat or is that a Sears squat? That's a paraphrase on Frank Zappa.
Which I know.
There'll be like 4 people out there that will get that joke. But more to the point, when you go to the gym to do squats, are you doing it? Are you doing your squats to learn how to increase your mobility and your fluidity and your motions throughout the day? Or are you just doing squats because you're trying to strengthen some muscles? And at that point, the squats are just a supplement to a lifestyle lacking natural movement, lacking mobility. And if I have this right, you're going to be teaching us how to do squats so that, for instance, if I have to plug in this outlet over here, instead of going like this,
which is perfectly fine,
unless I want to go like here, but this is a workout to do the squat. Ooh, here, let's put them on.
I can see that.
But
anyway.
As we were practicing this last night, I found that I could sneak past. I can go like this, and I'm actually cheating. I'm not doing the squat correctly, but I think I'm squatting. So
yeah, in a word, you are. So we talk about nutritious movement. Squats. The squat is a real whole foods meal. There's so much going on with the act of squatting, and there's so much that you can bypass and possibly injure yourself doing.
So you can skip the vegetables.
Skip the vegetables, yes. Don't skip your vegetables. So why is it important at all? This is a good question. Like, who cares if I can't do it or whatever? So why have we learned that this is something that you should be incorporating? The musculature and the joint hinging that comes into doing a squat supports so many other systems, pelvic floor for one. So as we've lost that, and apparently there's joint facets we're born with to allow our hinges or our hips to hinge into a squat that when we don't use them, we lose them. They actually disappear.
Oh, is that right?
So it's interesting. So the body does adapt to a life of non-squatting, but it is really important to bring it back. One, like I said, for the mobilization aspects of it, what it's supporting in the pelvic floor and the legs and all that, but also just coming back to the cells that you're supporting, the cells that are missing getting squished by not doing something like squatting. Does that?
So in other words, if we are living a life where we're not doing this regularly or doing that more often, the cells aren't getting the compression and the decompression that they need to stay healthy.
Right.
So they're being robbed of nutrition.
Right. Just like wearing shoes all the time, not letting your feet move in all the different ways
Right,
they're
that makes
available. It's, same thing. It's another one of those movements.
And squatting is something that if you can't do that, and I know a lot of people at this point, and I can see them walking up and down like in the grocery store, like their squat days are over.
Right.
And
Or so they think.
then you have to ask, well, then how do they get up and down the stairs? And how do they get out of a chair?
Right.
And how do they go through life? And I know one person very dear to me who would, had a difficult time coming over to see our new house because they can't take stairs.
Right.
Their stairs are nowhere. They live in a retirement place. There's an elevator and everything's flat and there's no stairs. And just having them get up out of a chair is work, and I have to go over and help them.
Right.
And that's all squatting. Like if she could squat more, getting up out of the chair is not so bad, or going up and down steps, that's all squatting movements.
Right. Yeah. Getting in and out of a chair is like, on the spectrum. It's on the spectrum of squatting. So,
Right.
and how we're doing that properly or improperly, or what are we using to do it? Because I don't want to say properly or improperly. I mean, however we can move is how we move. But if that's the only way you can move, then we diminish and we miss a lot of.
We need to expand the repertoire.
Expand the repertoire.
All right.
Yes.
So you're going to teach some markers, squatting markers, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes into a squat, as I've said, and I'm not even sure I have all of my
Squat facts.
squat facts, and abilities together. And mornings are a little bit tougher because everything's a little bit tighter. But there's three, at least on the lower level, there's three main areas of hinging that has to happen. One is in the ankle, the dorsiflexion, and then the knees, and then at the hip. All right, so we talked about, the three hinges. So when we're going into a squat, basically there's, these three hinges are working simultaneously. So as I'm coming down, there's your ankle flexion, there's your knee movement, and then there's the hip hinging, and then being able to come down. Now see, just so
Your heels are coming up.
my heels are coming up. So this is both a great thing to be doing, but it's also a great thing to see where all of your restrictions are as they work together. So today, and it was funny because we were doing this last night and my heels could stay on the floor. So it's just showing you like the difference between night and day, literally. So in this case, I don't have the range in my ankles this morning to be able to keep them on the floor as I come down. Come back in, Bill.
Let's look at the markers. Like, what do I need to be? If I want to do a squat, I want to get in the full picture here. If I want to do a squat, what are the markers that I'm looking for? Like, you already mentioned the heels, right?
Right. So we want to look at, are the heels coming up off the floor or are they staying here?
So if I want to practice squats, should I practice just coming down until my heels have to come up and then stop before that?
Well, you could actually pick out any one of these areas if you're having trouble with it and focus on it specifically. So in this case, for me or for you, finding that point where the heels start to come off the floor, it's like then I would want to start working with the calf stretches just to help get that elasticity back.
Okay. So in other words, if I'm coming down in a squat, and once my heels start to come up off the floor, do I just rest there and allow that to be the calf stretch, or do I have to do some additional calf stretchy stuff?
What you can, see, this is why there's so many different things you can do. What you could do is you could bolster the heels at this point. If you want to keep working on the actual squat movement is like, all right, this is, at this point I get this far and then my heels are going to start to come up. So I might allow that to happen, but then stabilize that so then I can continue to work on the rest
Oh, that's
of the
so.
motion.
You mean, in other words, so I can work on the quads? Like if I have to do that, then I don't need the bolster, right? I can just come up on my toes and come down. But if I can balance on my toes.
Well, ideally, you would want to take that extra piece of work out of it and let your feet rest where they are. And then you're kind of bringing the ground to where your limitation is. And then eventually you can lower that down as your calves stretch.
All right. Do you want to remind us, in case anyone hasn't seen it, just demonstrate the calf stretch?
Right, so having one of these little things is very handy, but again, you can use a rolled up towel or a rolled up yoga mat or something, but it's got to be rolled up tight enough so it's not going to sink under your feet. And you're going to place the ball of the foot on the top of the dome and the heel on the floor. Now you want to make sure that you're, if you're using this very specifically to start to get into the conditioning for doing a squat, you want to make sure that your feet are in the proper position, which is under the hip bones. And bring your foot up. Your weight is going to stay mostly over the stretching leg. And then as your calf stretches and you can relax into this, you can start to bring your other foot up closer to increase the stretch. Closer to the other foot and even beyond it if you can go there. So it's interesting, like I was doing this morning, and even though I'm getting a lot of stretch here, when I go in to do the squat, my heels aren't going to the floor. So I'm wondering if there's something else happening there.
That's what I was going to ask you is maybe after you do the stretches, then trying to do the squat again to see if there's any improvement. But maybe it doesn't work that fast.
Yeah, or maybe there's some other hang up.
Well, if the quads, if the quads are tight, when you're coming down into the squat, the quads have to lengthen.
Yeah.
So if the quads are tight, then that will keep you from getting down any further.
That's true. So maybe we'll do it.
So do you have tight quads?
I probably do. I never stretch my quads.
Well then.
I shouldn't say never. Hardly ever.
I know this was up. Oh, I know what you mean. Need some Chi Whiz.
Chi Whiz. That feels good, actually. All right. So we're going down. And you're right about here.
Now your heels are still on the floor.
They are, but they want to come up. I'm feeling them wanting to come up, and this is really a lot of work right now, and I'm feeling it in here. I'm controlling the movement. Oh, there we go. Okay. So there's still, I could say that I'm very much rolled over the front of my body here. I'm not, I'm having trouble keeping my upper body in a neutral position. There's still some work to do here. A little better this time.
So one marker, go back into your squat. And one more thing. So one marker is, what are the heels doing?
Right.
The other marker is, what are we looking for with the knees and the hip? Like, is the back and...
Yeah, sorry.
You know what I mean? Like, is it okay if the back is tipped forward, or should the back be straight up and down vertical?
More straight up and down and vertical, and that has a lot to do with tightness of the hip flexors, the ability of the pelvis to not tuck under when you're going down, to be able to stay in a neutral position relative to the upper body. And
so there's a lot of work going on there.
There's a lot of things going on there, which is kind of why I'm a little bit all over the map today of like, what do you focus on here?
Okay. What are some other, So calf stretches are going to help us with our squats.
Calf stretches are going to help.
Quad stretches.
Being able to, as you're doing this movement, making sure that your weight is over the back of your feet rather than tipped forward. So you're not putting all of that compression on the knees so much when you're going down, because that's another thing. It's like, well, I can't squat because my knees hurt. So you'd want to have been practicing while you're standing and doing a lot of other things, keeping your weight back over your feet, so you're able to release your quadriceps.
Okay, and you don't mean all the way back on the heels, but
No, I don't mean all the way back on the
heels,
heels. Right.
Because then you roll backwards.
Right. So it's more over the ankles. It's just heels are a better
Okay.
understanding. You can't feel where your ankles as much as you can feel where your weight is over your heels.
Right.
So that when you're going down, these are going to contract, but they're not going to be, you're not bearing all that weight over on top of the knee joints. So as you're keeping back, you can hinge. And you're kind of counterbalancing as your center of gravity comes down and stays over the back of the feet.
Is that the kind of thing that a person should do 5 of them, a set of 10, just one long one? Or should they just be looking to do it throughout the day as much as possible, once here, once there,
I think
once
it's
there?
going to depend on where you are regarding the squat. If it's a real challenge for you to be doing it, then you need to work on the incremental parts of it. So starting with, and we'll talk about this Wednesday, getting in and out of a chair, just starting with the smaller spectrum of squatting motion, just getting comfortable with using your back end to get up and out of the chair, and then developing that hinge mobility, and then going down further and further.
What if we're dealing with somebody who's older, and so the squat is going to be a real challenge for them?
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay if they kind of support themselves by putting their hands on their, just to get the feeling or the motion, or would you rather them not do that at all? You know what I mean? Like here, by putting my hands on my knees, it actually takes some of the work off of the biceps and the quads to put on the brakes. Would it be better to not cheat
I
that?
guess it depends. If you're using the hands to push up with, that's what you want to avoid. If they're there for just support, that's okay, but you don't want to start getting, I think having the hands there is almost a cue to lean forward. And what you want to learn is how not to lean forward as you're getting up, because that's still using momentum and the front of your legs.
Right, I can lean way forward because I'm bracing here.
Right.
So if you're just putting the hands here as a support in case you get into trouble, but as soon as I start leaning on them,
right,
then I'm disengaging the muscles.
We're envisioning pushing up through, again, when we're thinking about where our weight is coming down over the ankles and the heels, when you're coming up, you're still being aware of that's where that push is coming from. So not from the front of the feet, but from the back of the feet.
Oh.
And, again, we'll...
yeah, if I lean just a little bit forward, I'm out now over the balls of my feet, and that's where I'm pushing.
Right.
But if I lean just a little backwards over my ankles,
right,
I'm feeling muscles engage differently, and it's harder to come. My quads engage much more when I'm back over my ankles.
Engage more. Okay.
Yeah, I can feel that.
But you're feeling your back end being the force that's pushing you up more. Yes.
I'm still using my quads more than my glutes. I hear what you're saying. And that's a good point too. When we're pushing up, the glutes
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that are contracting to straighten out the
Right.
femur. So I want to be, if I'm not feeling those glutes, then I know I'm putting too much force on the
Right.
quads.
Right.
Awesome. That I did
there we
not
go.
know.
Okay, cool.
Well, think about this in terms of knee injuries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
If I'm coming up all the time and I'm using my quads, these quads come down and they attach here at the knee, which means I could blow out my knee quicker because there's too much force on it.
Well, what is one of the first things to go as we age? It's
The memory.
It's glad you remembered that. No, but it's the knees, right? It's one of our first complaints,
Yeah.
it seems. And it's, here's that one little shift of why we're always putting all of that force on the very tight knee joint.
Yeah, but that's, so would that be considered like a marker, something to look for when you're doing your squat is if I'm doing a squat and I can still flex my glutes and unflex them, then I know they're not engaged.
Right.
Which means I'm doing the squat wrong. Oh.
And so if you're the person that's going to go into the gym and like, okay, I know I need to do all these squats and I'm going to go do 30 of them, and then you're going to, find yourself limping the next day, this is a really important piece to bring into it, because you're going to put all of this force, high frequency intensity on a joint that is so tight and there's no give to it. So this is a really important thing to work on, and it's subtle. But it's something that you can work on all the time. Again, whenever you're getting up and down, is being aware of what you're using
to hinge.
To hinge, yeah.
Yeah, quadriceps are here, and when the quadriceps contract, they straighten the leg out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to think about, okay, my quads are straightening my leg out.
Mm-hmm.
But I forget that for the leg to come back, the glutes have to contract. So, and both those are happening.
Right.
It's like we talked about yesterday, like a cherry picker. It's a hinge like this. So it's the quads here that are causing this to come out, but it's the glutes here that are causing that to go up. And they both have to happen simultaneously. Right. And if I'm not feeling the glutes, then the quads are doing too much work. Oh,
and also watching how far out your knees go past your toes and stuff like that.
Yeah, but this is now I'm going to left with just my glutes.
So keeping your mind on pushing
down
through the heel is
Yeah, but I'm concentrating on the glutes, not the quads. Wow.
All right.
This is cool.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground today.
I think too we did.
All right.
Well, as you can see, this is where this week's going. We're going to get a little bit more mechanical, a little more technical. But hopefully by the end of it, you're going to know better how your body is supposed to move. And then you'll be able to do that throughout the day instead of having to set aside a time. I have to do my squats. It's better to say, like, you can squat all throughout the day, like when you turn on the stereo or plug in a light. Or there's all sorts of opportunities to squat. So there you have it.
Do your laptoping.
Could do that. Yeah, you could do the laptop lower. Okay.
All right.
So we'll be back on Wednesday with some more stuff. We're going to be looking at more using chairs, like how to get out of a chair without using your arms and stuff like that.
Momentum, yeah.
Momentum. Good. So we'll leave you with this thought. Never trust anyone. You'll never be disappointed. What?
Didn't we reprimand you about that yesterday?
I think it's a good thought.